Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video. One of the strangest coincidences in the kaiju genre is how, in the year 1961, 2 movies were made by different teams in different nations with no communication between them, and yet they are eerily similar in premise and execution. In Japan, that movie is Mothra, but in Great Britain, it's GORGO. However, while Mothra went on to become an international icon still actively used in media to this day, GORGO turned out to be a one-film wonder, though that's not to say it was forgotten. The movie has always been in print and available across every known form of media, and it got a sequel in comic book form courtesy of Steve Ditko. Even the soundtrack is available on the More Monstrous Movie Music CD, where it shares space with the scores from Tarantula and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. GORGO is far from a forgotten film, but sadly, it never carved out a niche in the collectible figure market. Enter Titanic Creations. After releasing 4 original kaiju figures and a graphic novel, founder Mac McClintock secured the rights to make a GORGO figure that would be fully articulated and loaded with accessories. That figure has finally arrived, which can mean only one thing. It's time for a full-on analysis. Recent Titanic Creations figures have come in clear plastic boxes that allow collectors to display the figures while keeping them in mint condition, and the GORGO figure is no exception. One side displays some impressive artwork that I'm sure you'll all recognize as the work of Matt Frank, while the rest has a cityscape along the bottom. Otherwise, it's clear. Kind of. Unlike previous boxes, this one is very slightly opaque. You can still see inside, but it's a bit hazy, and I'm not entirely sure why. Well, it doesn't matter, because I'm taking it out of the box anyway. Before I get much further, you might notice that the airplanes didn't stay secure in the plastic tray. Given how flat they are, I'm not surprised that this happened, but they still arrived undamaged, as did everything else. Even if some things were loose, the trays ultimately did their job. This won't be the only time the planes behave a bit oddly, but we'll get to that in due course. Well, the main draw is the big figure, sometimes named Ogra. For the uninitiated, Ogra is the name used by the locals of Nara Island, while GORGO is the name used by the showrunners to draw a crowd. Really, the names are interchangeable, so I'll be going back and forth throughout this video. Standing at around 6 inches tall, GORGO looks very close to how she appears in the movie. This is especially impressive because the sculptor, Dope Pope, had no previous models to work with, and thus had to base his work on very specific shots from the movie to get it right. Taking in the full 360-degree view, I would say the effort paid off. The skin has a nice texture to it that's just rough enough to invoke a scaly saurian hide without feeling unpleasant, with nice variations depending on the bodily region. You can even make out certain details that may go unnoticed in the film itself, like how there are 7 rows of armored plates down GORGO's back. Naturally, logos are stamped on the bottoms of the feet. The right foot bears the TC logo, while the left foot has the GORGO name in the stylized font from the posters. They're not deep impressions though, and since the figure will mostly be standing upright anyway, they'll largely go unnoticed. Paint, like sculpt, is very accurate. Most of the figure is forest green, and this fades into tannish yellow for the belly. Claws on the hands and feet are medium gray, teeth are off-white, the inside of the mouth is fleshy pink, and the eyes are bright fire engine red. You may notice a slight glossiness to the paint, which is different from the flat paints usually applied to these sorts of figures. Different it may be, but I think it adds to the reptilian look, giving Ogra an almost snake-like sheen. Being aquatic, this glossiness might also be interpreted as Ogra still being slightly wet after emerging from the sea. But what about that articulation? Well, there are nearly 30 points of it. You can turn the head, open the mouth, twist the neck and torso, and move the arms and legs in just about every possible direction. The feet even have hinges for the toes to make for more dynamic walking poses. The greatest number of joints can be found in the tail, which contains 11 segments that allow for all kinds of movement. And the joints are easy to work with, too. None of them are too stiff or too loose, so you don't need to fight with it, but it can hold a pose. I'd compare it to the Jurassic Park Hammond Collection dinosaurs in that regard. Now, quick aside, as I was messing around with it for the first time, the tip of the tail popped out and released the last ring portion. I was able to snap it back into place easily, but it was a good reminder to be careful with the figure. Bottom line, Gorgo's articulation allows it a wider range of movement than the suit in the movie ever had. You can pose her just about any way you want and she looks amazing no matter what. Unfortunately, the ears don't wiggle and the hands can't do the Doctor Strange poses from the comics, but I doubt anyone will shed tears over that. Now, how about those extras? Let's start with the infant. He stands just under 2 inches tall and has the same color scheme as his mother. Details in paint and sculpt aren't as meticulous, but they don't skimp either. Obviously, he was never going to have the same level of movement as the main figure, but I can't imagine why a bit of arm and leg movement wasn't included besides keeping the price down. Well, he might not be able to move, but he still looks good alongside his gargantuan mama. Next up is Elizabeth Tower, though most people know it as Big Ben, which is just a smidge shorter than Gorgo. Here we see a shiny golden paint job that contrasts nicely with the dark slate gray of the roof, and the Gothic architecture is recreated beautifully. All of the clock faces are set at 10:40, which is weird considering Ogre tears it down at 12:30 in the movie, but then again, time is relative anyway. You might notice a few subtle cracks around the clock face, and these hint at the tower's primary feature. The top portion is removable, with a jagged line to simulate destruction. Now yes, doing this does leave a large peg exposed, but that can easily be covered with some prop explosions if you have any. Otherwise, it looks like the real thing, and given how iconic the sequence from the movie is, I'm glad it was included. Next up are those planes I mentioned while unboxing the figure. Looking back, the fact that they were loose in the packaging might have been foreshadowing, as I would describe them as simultaneously cool and frustrating. The cool part is that they are here at all. While they are simple in detail, they still look good, and a stand is included to allow them a chance to fly. It's that stand, however, that introduces the frustration. Here's how it works. You have a base comprised of a single black disc, and there are 3 bendable black rods which attach the planes to that base, essentially akin to twist ties. You can bend them however you want to get the planes at various levels, but there is no way to secure them tightly to either the base or the planes, which means they will constantly be falling and swerving as you strive for equilibrium. It can be done, mind you, and the results look great, but it can still be irritating getting it just right, and the assembly feels like it could still fall apart if you look at it too hard. Even with that in mind, I appreciate that they were added. Once you get them right where you want them, they add a nice visual flair to the display. Last but certainly not least, we have the diving bell. This is the simplest accessory as it has no paint variation and no stand. Look closely and you'll see a loop at the top where you can tie some string so it can be suspended, but beyond that, there's not much more to say about it. Again, it's included because of how iconic the scene it appears in is, and if your goal is to make a display for that sequence in particular, all you need is some thread and you're good to go. Actually, there is one more accessory worth discussing. You see, the main figure comes with 2 heads. They're completely alike save for one detail. The other head has glow-in-the-dark eyes. Let's see how they look. Now, I've had the eyes soaking in some light for a little while now, and I know that they work. I have tested it. I'm just not sure how well they'll show up on camera because they're red. Even when they glow, they're red. It's not like glow-in-the-dark, everything turns green. They actually found a way to do it red, but red in glow-in-the-dark form doesn't always show up on camera. So the only way to find out for certain is to turn out the lights and see how it goes. Here we are. Alright, I think you can kinda see. It's faint, like I said, but look closely. The camera might not be focusing the best, but it is there. So, yeah. Even if you can't really see it that well, it still looks really neat. So, yeah, again, another nice feature that they added. In the end, Titanic Creations really went all out for this figure. Like I said, GORGO never really broke into the collectible realm, so to go from practically nothing to a figure of this caliber is quite a leap. It especially looks good alongside other kaiju figures, like these Haya and Revoltech beasts, but even on its own, this is impressive. Titanic Creations is said to have more plans for GORGO in the future beyond just a figure, but we'll have to wait and see how those materialize. For now though, we have the figure itself, and that figure is great. Welcome to the shelves of the world, Gorgo. Hope you enjoy your stay. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. I think I know how we can resolve the naming thing. How about we go the Monsterverse route, where the species name is Ogra, but everybody publicly knows them as GORGO. I think that could work. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.